the Lebanese foreign minister called on his government to prevent the armed terrorist groups from using borders with Syria as a base for military operations against it. The European Union expresses fear that the Western attempts to arm Syrian opposition will lead to instability and the start of an arms race in the region. Syrian Arab Army units continue to hunt down terrorists, including non-Syrians, in several areas. Good afternoon, this is news in English from the Syrian Arab television in Damascus. Foreign and expatriates Minister Adnan Mansour called on the Lebanese government to prevent armed groups from using border areas with Syria as a base for military operations against it. Interviewed by a Safir daily newspaper, Mansour warned against changing North Lebanon into a camp for recruiting terrorists, pointing out that this issue would constitute a dangerous threat to Lebanon in the future. He added that the Lebanese security and military forces have to control the borders to prevent the flow of gunmen and weapons into neighboring Syria. The EU governments rejected a French-British proposal for lifting the ban on sending weapons to Syrian opposition, expressing fear that such a move would lead to instability and the start of an arms race in the region. Reuters quoted EU diplomats as saying that the French-British proposal did not win any support, but they asked the EU foreign ministers to discuss the issue in their forthcoming meeting next week. Interim President of the European Council, Herman Van Rompuy, said in a press conference he held in Brussels that the EU leaders asked their foreign ministers to discuss this issue during their upcoming meeting in Dublin on the 22nd of this month. Meanwhile, the Czech Republic and Austria expressed rejection of the proposal for arming opposition in Syria. Other European states, including Germany, expressed complete rejection of any attempt to lift the European embargo to send weapons into Syria. Hours after Hollande's conference, British Prime Minister David Cameron tried to distance himself from his previous statements, which publicly called for arming the terrorists in Syria, claiming that there were no current plans for this issue. In a statement he made following his talks with European counterparts in Brussels, Cameron said he did not say that Britain actually wants to provide weapons to the opposition groups. In a related context, the Turkish people are still refusing the policies of Erdogan's government and the efforts they are taking. For this part, the Peace and Democracy Party sent a memo to the parliament. The memo objected the fact that the Erdogan's government is sending weapons into Syria, and it also called for starting an investigation into this issue. The MP for the Peace and Democracy Party, Al Tantan, said during a press conference in the Turkish parliament that the policy of Erdogan's government towards Syria has increased fears in Turkey and that now people are afraid of the terrorist groups supported by this government. He also explained that the Erdogan government gives weapons and ammunition to these groups that infiltrate through Turkey to Syria, adding that these fighters come from various countries and nationalities. The MP also noted that there are dozens of complaints from Turkish families due to the fact that their children were sent to fight in Syria and that they were giving false identities. Moving to our local news, where units of the Syrian armed forces pursued terrorists in several areas in Idlib countryside. A source in the city said that the army destroyed a number of terrorist hideouts in the villages of Az-Zainiyeh, Bzeit and Al-Ghar in Jisr al-Shughul countryside, killing and injuring a number of terrorists. The source added that the army also targeted terrorist gatherings in the towns of Binnish, Al-Nirab, Jidar, Bakfaloon, Sermin, Kafarjadis, Saraqib and Ma'arat Musrin, inflicting heavy losses upon terrorists. A unit of the Syrian Arab armed forces destroyed a number of terrorist vehicles and weapons, killing a number of them in Abu Dhur area. In Homs countryside, a unit of the Syrian Arab Army destroyed terrorist hideouts in Al-Rastan city. A source in the city said that a number of terrorists were killed in the operation. The source added that a unit of the armed forces clashed with an armed terrorist group which attacked an oil pipeline east of Al-Mahin town in Homs countryside. 2 terrorists were killed, others injured, while the rest fled, the source said. Also in Deir ez-Zor, a Syrian Arab Army unit foiled the terrorist attempt to explode a car and eliminated a number of the terrorists of the so-called Jabhat al-Nusra in Al-Hawiqa quarter in Deir ez-Zor city. Among them terrorist Muhammad Hussein al-Raja. Another unit set an ambush for a number of terrorist cars, some of which are equipped with heavy machine guns. While they were heading for Deir ez-Zor city, all the cars and the weapons and ammunition inside them were destroyed while the terrorists in the cars were killed. In Dar'a, armed forces set an ambush for a terrorist group affiliated to Al-Nusra Front to the north of Al-Mahajja village, killing all its members and destroying a pickup and a motorbike that the terrorist group were using. In Khirbat Ghazali, a Syrian Arab Army unit destroyed 2 mortar bombs and killed several terrorists. Another army unit targeted terrorist hideouts in the villages of Jamli, Sahm al-Julan and hit in the western countryside of the governorate, killing several terrorists, including non-Syrians. In Damascus countryside, units of the Syrian army eliminated a number of terrorists and restored security and stability to Al-Parlaman roundabout, the cultural center, the police department and the municipality building in Jobar area. An official source said that the Syrian Arab Army units foiled the terrorist attempt to explode scores of explosive devices, some of which weighs 30 kilograms, planted by terrorists in Al-Madaris neighborhood. Also in Adra, an army unit destroyed terrorist gatherings and their cars and vehicles, which were armed by heavy machine guns. Arab and Western press disclosed the information about the involvement of Arab and Western states in offering financial and military aid to terrorist groups in Syria.
In a new proof on the immense support that the armed terrorist groups are receiving from Arab and Western states, a source revealed that the first Syrian rebels trained by the U.S. military in Jordan returned to Syria. The CNN website said the source, described as a senior rebel spokesman, said in a statement to CNN that about 300 rebel fighters received specialized training in Jordan on the use of various weapons, including anti-tank, anti-aircraft and other types of advanced systems. CNN quoted the source as saying that more rebels are currently under training. Meanwhile, well-informed Tunisian sources said that Tunisian security forces started to break up networks that were working for recruiting hundreds of Tunisians to make them join the terrorist groups in Syria. The Tunisian Al-Shuruq daily quoted the sources as saying that one of these networks was working near Carthage presidential palace, referring that $3,000 are paid to the network for every Tunisian youth recruited. The daily said that there were reports about the involvement of more than 20 Tunisian legal and political associations in the recruitment of fighters. The Tunisian electronic daily Tanit Press unveiled that more than 30 Tunisian youths were killed last February while they were fighting along with the terrorist groups in Syria. These press reports were accompanied by information about the visit paid by a Turkish military team to Yemen to supervise the sending of terrorists from the Muslim Brotherhood movement to Turkey to be trained and sent to Syria. Yemeni sources said that head of the Turkish intelligence visited Yemen to discuss this issue.
In honor of the mothers of the martyrs and those who fell for the sake of the homeland, the two groups of Lams al-Dafa and Libaladi launched an activity for the Mother's Day in the Opera House in Damascus. The activity set up a fund for the martyrs' mothers. This was started with a charity bazaar for homemade items. The money then will support the fund. An art exhibition will also be held for the martyrs' children, and special children activities are going to be set up. During the activity, 10 martyr mothers were honored as they gave them the birth certificates of 10 young volunteers with their photos, and they presented full contact information. In addition, they also gave health insurance for the martyrs' mothers and wives. The initiative aims at easing the negative social effect of the crisis and participating in the national reconciliation. The initiative includes building a database for related to the martyrs' families that will be updated at all times. hoping that all the martyrs rest in peace. That was our news for today. More details on our website www.syriaonline.sy. After the break, repairs underway in Homs